Okay, here's a quick test for resolution. So I have opened up a dimensions file without bringing in my box, and as you can see, I've made it 12 inches. My canvas is 12 inches by 12 inches at 400 dpi. That means if I bring in a cube, it's not going to be 12 inches by 12 inches. It's probably closer to, let's see, 8 inches, let's see here, centimeters. Yeah, so it's quite a bit smaller, but not tiny. So I'm just going to sort of face it in here, and then the test that I did was to create basically huge files from Illustrator. So in Illustrator, if I go back to there, the two files that I'm looking at is a text file. This text file is 15 inches by 12 inches. This image file is 24 inches by 33 inches. Then what I did was I exported them. So I went export PNG 400 dpi, and I saved that onto my desktop. The other thing I did was I saved the Illustrator file, and I opened those files in Photoshop, and once I opened them in Photoshop, I saved them as PNGs at 400 dpi, and we're just going to test to see if there's a difference. Realistically, if you save something at 400 dpi at 100% size, it should be the same. So this is kind of the wonky thing about dimensions. You have to sort of work to try and make sure you get the resolution you want, and sometimes it means like working on an artboard that's 11 by 17, you know, so your box, your packaging is quite huge. So if I click on this, and I will try bringing in a couple of different ones. First one, we will try bringing in the we'll bring in the text first. So this is the text brought in from Illustrator, and you can clearly see that it scales it down. So even though that is supposed to be basically 14 inches, it certainly is not. Now that's bringing it in directly from Illustrator as a PNG. Then oops, we'll click on this again. We'll bring in another one, and we'll bring it in as a Photoshop PNG. And you can see just bringing in from Photoshop, it comes in quite a bit bigger. Now the other thing I can try is I saved the text file once I opened it up in Photoshop as a PSD. So if I went and actually opened up the oops, go back to the packaging. If I opened up actual Photoshop file and brought it in, it brought it in even bigger and a little bit cleaner. So that's bringing it in as a Photoshop, those things as, so three different things. Opening the Illustrator file as a Photoshop and saving it as a PSD and bringing it in. The other one was opening it in Photoshop and saving it as a PNG. And then the smallest one was saving it, exporting it from Illustrator. So if we sort of let's just turn this thing around. So I'm going to bring in PSD from Photoshop. So it's loading it in. We'll place it there, and then we'll bring one in from, we'll bring a PNG in from Illustrator. See if there's any difference. So there doesn't seem to be a huge difference there. Now we'll leave the type on there, so we see that the Photoshop file seemed to come in the smoothest. Let's just kind of do this, and then I'm going to render this as a PNG. This is relatively big. The two images, out of the two, I would say there wasn't a huge difference when it rendered. The same as the type, but the one thing that was pretty clear is opening the files in Illustrator, then saving them as the PNGs definitely made them bigger. So that is definitely clear, as opposed to a 400 dpi text file exported from Illustrator versus a 400 dpi file that's opened in Photoshop then saved, ends up being quite a bit bigger. So that's definitely one way to bring it in, but I think the overall sort of thing to think about with this one is that having a, making sure that your cube is on a big on a big surface. So this one was basically like 9 inches by 9 inches at 400 dpi. And you can sort of see it's fine for your portfolio, because even at this 100% size, the text, obviously it's not crisp, but even when we kind of zoom out from it, it's still pretty legible. So yeah, it's sort of the bigger your so if you can export things at 400 dpi, obviously a quadruple the size type thing, that makes quite a difference. And then having your artboard in dimensions at 400 dpi.